A live bullet emerged from the barrel of the gun, and consequently, 42-year-old cinematographer Halyna Hutchins was fatally shot through the chest. The man holding the gun was the film's leading actor and co-producer, Alec Baldwin. In the aftermath of this tragic event, amidst multiple investigations and legal proceedings, the question on everyone's lips was more or less the same. How the hell could this happen? Hi, and welcome back to the iSafe YouTube channel. Today we're going to do the second part of our series on big accidents that have happened around the world. So what we're going to do is, Jack's wrote me a script. Again, I've never read this before. It's on the Rush shooting, which essentially all I know about this is Alec Baldwin shot somebody by accident while trying to make a film. So we're going to read all about that. We're going to learn together, and hopefully we'll be able to unpick some health and safety stuff to improve your safety in your workplace. So that's the format. Let's get started. On the 21st of October 2021, at Bonanza Creek Ranch in New Mexico, a prop firearm was discharged during a rehearsal for a film called Rust. With a budget of just $6 or $7 million, that seems really low. You're a cinematographer, is that low?
That is low.
It's not a big budget. I think that might feed into it at some point. Rust was by all accounts a passion project for Baldwin. Despite an extensive career spanning decades from Glengarry Glen Ross, never heard of it, to 30 Rock, never watched it, he had never starred in a Western. So, when the opportunity arose to both co-produce and star in a film set in the 1880s Kansas, he seized it. Baldwin helped develop the story, brought on director Joel Souza, and signed on as Harland Rust, an aging outlaw on the run with his grandson. It was intended to have a gritty, authentic feel of a classic Western. Makes more sense on the budget there now. To handle weapons on set, production hired Hannah Gutierrez Reed, daughter of respected veteran armourer Fel Reed, who had worked on films like Tombstone. Hannah, however, was relatively new to the job. She'd only recently completed her first project as head armourer, another Western film called The Old Way, and it had not been without controversy. Crew members reported concerns about her handling of firearms, including an incident which she discharged a gun without warning, causing lead actor Nicolas Cage to storm off set.
To make the job easier.
When you've upset Nicolas Cage, that's when you know you fucked up. Yeah, I feel like he's a really hard man to piss off Nicolas Cage. Like, I just feel like he'd be up for anything, but apparently that's his limit. Despite those concerns, she was hired for Rust to oversee all firearms and ammunition on set. Yeah, it sounds like Hannah Gutierrez Reed is a bit new to it. She's a bit incompetent. And whether it's incompetence when handling guns is not a great thing. I know we've got foresight here on what happens, but incompetence just in general in the workplace. Like, we need to look after less experienced members of staff and know that they've got limitations. Like, you can't hire somebody and put them in charge of something on the first day. They need to gain experience and need to know the systems and processes. Yeah, it seems like right from the off, they were doomed to incompetence here. Assistant Director David Halls, finally a name I can pronounce. The production also hired David Halls as Assistant Director, a key figure responsible for maintaining safety protocols on set, including when firearms are involved. But Halls also had a bit of a questionable history. All sounding really good, isn't it? In 2019, crew members complained about his conduct on Into the Dark, alleging that he ignored safety protocols, including blocking fire exits. That same year, he was reportedly fired from the film Freedom's Path after a gun discharged unexpectedly on site, injuring a crew member. Who hired these people? Yeah, they don't seem very competent, and as previously stated, that is not a good thing. Despite these prior incidents, Hall continued working in the industry and was a key member of the Rust team. At the centre of this tragedy was Halyna Hutchins, a rising star in the world of cinematography. Born in Ukraine, she built an impressive resume and was seen as a talented collaborative artist. Halyna had been named one of America's cinematographer's rising stars in 2019, and colleagues praised her creative vision and professionalism. Rust was one of her biggest projects to date. Well before the tragic shooting on October the 21st, Rust was already a production under pressure. Behind the scenes, the atmosphere had grown tense, a storm quietly brewing. The start of filming coincided with one of the most significant labour disputes in recent Hollywood history. Members of the International Alliance of Theatrical Stage Employees, the union representing tens of thousands of crew members across the US, were preparing for a potential strike over low pay, poor working conditions and punishingly long hours. Earlier that month, nearly 99% of IATSE members had voted to authorise a strike. Among those who supported the union's cause was cinematographer Halyna Hutchins herself, who voiced solidarity on Instagram. According to several crew members, Rust embodied many of the problems the union was fighting against. Safety protocols were reportedly lax, firearm safety sheets, normally distributed with daily call sheets, were either missing, not properly followed. There was allegedly no medic present during site construction, and many crew members expressed frustration over long commutes and insufficient hotel accommodation after grueling 13-hour shifts. Yeah, it seems like there's so much wrong there, like so many pressures. Some reported being mocked for not wanting to make the hour-long drive from Albuquerque after wrap, leaving only a handful of hours to sleep before returning to set. So many issues, like, honestly, there's something called the working time agreement. It's not really an health and safety thing, it's more of an HR thing. But in the UK, it's designed to stop this kind of thing. I think we've all worked long hours, but it does affect us performance after a bit. So if the Armourer, who I feel is going to be at the centre of this story, is both incompetent and sleep deprived, you know, it's a recipe for human error here. Others raised payment issues, claiming that they hadn't been paid in weeks. One crew member summed up the frustration bluntly, and I quote, "We cited everything from a lack of payment for 3 weeks, taking our hotels away despite asking for them in our deals, lack of COVID safety, and on top of that, poor gun safety, poor on-set safety, period." Yep, I think that pretty much sums it up by what I've just read. These concerns weren't abstract. In the weeks leading up to the incident, there had already been 2 accidental firearm discharges on set. In one case, Baldwin's stunt double fired 2 blanks after being told a gun was cold. In another, a crew member accidentally shot herself in the foot with a blank round. I really hope that the on-site health and safety, the David Halls fellow who we spoke about earlier, I really hope that he investigated the cause of these, because this sort of thing, the reason we investigate near misses and minor accidents is so we can find a way to prevent similar accidents happening in the future with more severe consequences. And it seems like there were a couple of warning shots here, literally, that if they'd been investigated properly, they could have closed out some of the causal factors, figured out why they'd gone wrong, and that could have stopped the inevitable shooting that happened later down the line. Yeah, but it doesn't sound like that happened. To some crew members, these incidents painted a picture of a set where safety was being compromised to save time and money, a cardinal sin. But the narrative isn't entirely one-sided. In the aftermath, 25 crew members signed a letter pushing back against what they described as a misleading public portrayal of the set as chaotic and dangerous. Rust was professional, they wrote. We do acknowledge that no set is perfect, and like any production, Rust has areas of brilliance and areas that were more challenging. While we stand firmly with our unions and strongly support the fight for better working conditions across the industry, we do not feel that this set was representative of the kind of conditions our unions are fighting against. The conflicting accounts highlight the complicated truth. Rust was a production caught between mounting industry-wide labour tensions and specific on-site safety concerns, particularly around firearms. Many of the protocols in question, like those governing safe gun handling, were already well established through the Union, Screen Actors Guild and the Actors Equality Rules. But whether through negligence, miscommunication or cost-cutting, something had clearly gone wrong, which brings us to the events of the 21st of October. October the 21st, 2021 was scheduled to be the 12th day of filming on Rust, but it started with tension. At around 6:30am, 7 unionised members of the camera crew walked off set in protest over working conditions. According to some reports, they were told to leave the premises, with one producer allegedly threatening to call the police, and they were swiftly replaced by non-union crew. What happened next is one of the more disturbing and disputed elements of the timeline. Several crew members later claimed that earlier in the day, a number of prop guns were taken off-set to shoot beer cans with live ammunition for fun. Not great, is it? Yeah, there's no real parallel with like UK industry. Like you can't take a piece of equipment off-site and start shooting beer cans with it, but yeah. Among those weapons, reportedly, was the same revolver involved in the fatal incident. After lunch, the guns were returned, but it's unclear whether they were properly checked again before being brought back onto set. Call me crazy, but I have a sneaking suspicion that they weren't checked. Yeah, I agree with the script on that one. I don't think they were. Again, when it comes to equipment, always check it. Pre-use checks on everything. It's a good habit to get into. That afternoon, the cast and crew prepared to rehearse a gunfight scene inside a wooden church at Bonanza Creek Ranch. From a locked safe, Armourer Halyna Hutchins retrieved the firearm and placed 3 guns on a cart near the set. One was a plastic gun that could not shoot live rounds, one was a modified weapon that couldn't fire at all, and one was a solid frame .45 Colt revolver replica made by Pieta, the weapon that would later be discharged. According to a search warrant, Gutierrez Reed briefly checked the guns. Assistant Director David Halls then picked up the Pieta revolver. Standard safety protocol required Halls to open the loading gate and rotate the cylinder to inspect each chamber. But he didn't check them all. He recalls seeing just 3 of the 6 rounds, meaning he didn't rotate the cylinder. Moments later, he declared cold gun, indicating the weapon was safe and unloaded of live ammunition, and handed it to Alec Baldwin. I mean, one of the things, I keep saying about doing pre-use checks of equipment, you've actually got to do those pre-use checks for them to be effective. I have known it with clients in the past where they're checking forklifts or mupes or any piece of equipment, and it's a checkbox exercise. If we actually check his equipment properly, we might identify a safety critical fault, which in this case, although we're talking about a gun, which again I hope you don't have in the workplace, would have stopped if they'd have checked for the live ammunition and then identified it. I'm guessing the shooting wouldn't have occurred. Inside the small wooden church at Bonanza Creek, the crew was setting up for what should have been a simple rehearsal. The scene involved Alec Baldwin's character drawing a revolver from its holster and pointing it directly towards the camera, a classic Western shot. B camera operator Reed Russell was positioned on a dolly behind the monitor. Standing beside him was cinematographer and director Joel Souza, closely monitoring the framing of the shot. They were positioned just 2 feet from the muzzle of the revolver. As they worked, Hutchins and Souza began to adjust the camera to remove a shadow that had fallen across the set. During this time, Baldwin explained how he planned to perform the movement. "So I guess I'm going to take this out, pull it and go bang," he said, demonstrating how he would draw the weapon. Then, almost without warning, the revolver discharged a single round. To this day, the exact mechanics of the discharge remain disputed. Baldwin had consistently stated that he did not pull the trigger. His attorneys and Hall's lawyers both claimed that Baldwin's finger was never inside the trigger guard. However, according to a later FBI forensic analysis, the weapon could only have fired if the trigger was pulled. I don't see how it matters whether he pulled the trigger or not. The root cause of this was that there was live ammunition in the gun. Like, if it had been a blank, I know you can be shot by a blank, or a dummy bullet, like, this, this wouldn't have happened. So whether he pulled the trigger or not, for me, it's kind of blaming the immediate cause for the entire thing. Yeah, I'm on your side, Alec, on that one, definitely. Might not be for the whole thing, but yeah. For now. What is clear is the path the bullet took. The live round tore through Halyna Hutchins' chest, passing through her body and struck Joel Souza in the shoulder. The monitor captured none of it. No footage was rolling at the time. That would have been helpful for figuring out what happened and whether he pulled the trigger. Chaos followed. Crew members scrambled for medics. Script supervisor Mamie Mitchells dialed 911 at 1:46 p.m, her voice shaking as she reported that 2 people had been shot on set. Emergency personnel arrived within 3 minutes. Hutchins was airlifted to the University of New Mexico Hospital in Albuquerque. Souza was rushed by ambulance to Christus St. Vincent Regional Medical Center in Santa Fe. A short time later, Halyna Hutchins was pronounced dead. She was 42 years old. Joel Souza survived his injuries and was released the following morning. Production on Rust was suspended indefinitely. In the days that followed, the co-producer expressed hope that the film might eventually be completed in Hutchins' honour. But as investigations unfolded and lawsuits mounted, that hope became far less certain. In the aftermath of the shooting, Rust became the focus of a massive legal and regulatory storm. What began as a low-budget passion project quickly turned into one of the most scrutinised on-set tragedies in modern Hollywood history. Multiple investigations were launched involving local law enforcement, the FBI, and New Mexico's Occupational Health and Safety Bureau. The focus was how a live round ended up in Alec Baldwin's revolver on the film set, where only blanks should have been present, and who was responsible for the catastrophic failure. Yeah, that's definitely the way they should be going, not whether or not Alec Baldwin pulled the trigger. The armourer, Hannah Gutierrez-Reed, faced the most severe consequences. Prosecutors argued that she had loaded the live round into the revolver and failed to follow standard safety protocols designed to prevent exactly this kind of tragedy. Yeah, but she was pretty incompetent at the same time. Like, the supervisors should have been monitoring, and David Halls, the co-director, should definitely... There was a reason he was checking after, and the combination of both of their incompetence is, for me, the main issue here. In March 2024, Gutierrez-Reed was found guilty of involuntary manslaughter. She was sentenced to 18 months in prison on April the 15th, 2024. That seems very, very light to say a woman died. Oh, she was released early on parole and probation in May 2025. Yeah, that's just over a year for, like, being the cause of somebody dying. I mean, just on a side note here, like, and it's a good thing to bring in, not to put the fear of God into it, but we have a set of regulations in the UK and sentencing guidelines around corporate manslaughter. So, people in people in UK businesses, if they're found to be a causal reason for an accident, they can go to prison under the Corporate Manslaughter Act or whatever that's called. And that can be up to 2 years. So, this sentencing might actually follow a similar thing to what you might get in the UK if you were incompetent in your job and found to be a causal factor in a fatal accident. It shouldn't have happened, and all I can think is it goes back to when they were shooting beer cans. Like, they brought them on as a bit of a hobby project, something to do on the lunch break, and shoot some cans, which is wildly wrong. Sort it out. But they should never be on there, and it shouldn't just be Gutierrez Reed. Like, there should be so many levels, from the procurement team who's buying the rounds and the props, her checking it, the second check. As we've said, 6 or 7 million isn't a lot of money. So, and what usually falls by the wayside when there is a small budget is health and safety. They're not going to stimp on, the effects and that kind of thing because they want people to watch the film. They're not going to skimp on marketing and that kind of thing because, again, they want to get people in cinemas. It's going to be health and safety that falls by the wayside. And it seems like the small budget has led to hiring an incompetent armourer and an incompetent co-director who's not doing his safety protocols right.
So what is the main takeaway from that?
Don't cut your health and safety budget. Don't cut your health and safety budget. It's keep that there, not just for me to keep me in a job, but also like you might end up shooting somebody in a wooden church, maybe. Alec Baldwin, as lead actor, one of the film's producers, and of course the man holding the gun, became the central figure in the legal and media firestorm. Baldwin was initially charged with involuntary manslaughter in January 2023. He pleaded not guilty. In April 2023, prosecutors dropped the charges, citing new evidence and the need for further analysis of the weapon. In January 2024, Baldwin was re-indicted on the same charge after a special grand jury review. For people in the UK, the grand juries, like the Crown Prosecution Service, they decide what cases move forward to an actual trial and what stop at either a HSE or a police element. Yeah, it sounds bigger than it is. It's kind of an intermediary step. And then in June 2024, the case was dismissed with prejudice, meaning the charges cannot be refiled, which I think, from what I've read, is absolutely right. Like, he should not have been in that position at all. Although what I would say, and I don't know if he's going to say it later, is if I was an actor and I had a gun on a set where there'd been multiple discharges of firearms and people had been injured, I'd really, really check that gun before I took it onto set. This is another thing. It's okay. It's one thing saying Hannah Gutierrez Reed should check the gun. It's the other thing saying the co-producer, but surely him as the end user, for his own sanity, his own peace of mind, should have done a pre-use check on that gun, given the circumstances, and being such an high-profile, not such an high-profile actor as such, but being important in the production element of it, you'd think he would check it. It could have easily been a setup, but it was purely incompetence. But I think other than that, I think Baldwin's in the right here. Like, you don't expect to be handed a loaded gun on a film set. No. If somebody said, I've checked this safety harness, or I've checked this piece of equipment, you're okay, just crack on and use it, and it's a safety critical bit of kit, I'd still check it myself. I still think he's very not culpable from what I'm reading here, but that I think he should have checked it. Anyway, asides. Okay, so Baldwin's getting away with it. The prosecution's case was complicated. Baldwin maintained that he never pulled the trigger, while an FBI report indicated that the gun could not have fired without the trigger being engaged. This conflict and procedural issues surrounding evidence ultimately led to the dismissal of the case. The assistant director, David Halls, who handed Baldwin the revolver and declared it a cold gun, reached a plea deal early on. He pleaded no contest to a charge of negligent use of a deadly weapon. He avoided jail time but received probation as part of his agreement. I think he got off lightly. I think he should have had the same outcome as Gutierrez-Reed, really, as the safety man on set. The criminal proceedings were only part of the fallout. Civil litigation soon followed. The family of Halyna Hutchins filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Baldwin and other producers. The suit remains ongoing. Several crew members filed civil suits of their own, claiming they suffered post-traumatic stress disorder and other psychological trauma from the incident. Yeah, totally agree with that. They should definitely get a claim in. The production company was fined the maximum penalty by the New Mexico Occupational Health and Safety Bureau, citing willfully serious violations of gun safety protocol on set. The Rust tragedy sent shockwaves far beyond the set in New Mexico. It forced the entire film industry to confront long-standing safety practices, especially around the use of real firearms on set. In the months and years that followed, many productions voluntarily adopted stricter safety protocols, while some studios and networks moved towards banning functional firearms entirely in favour of replicas and digital effects. Great shout, eliminate the hazard. Unions, too, renewed their push to stronger protections, demanding mandatory safety training, clearer chain of custody procedures for weapons, and zero tolerance for shortcuts. Great. The incident became a case study in how multiple small oversights can compound a single irreversible disaster. The shooting on the set of Rust was a convergence of safety lapses, miscommunication and questionable decision-making, all of which created conditions where one pull of a trigger, or perhaps even cocking the hammer, cost a talented cinematographer her life, and forever altered the careers and lives of everyone involved. The script then goes on to say, that was my diplomatic conclusion, here's a more honest one. If your job involves the use of a gun, even if it's a prop gun, which can only fire blanks, fucking don't let live ammunition anywhere near it, fucking check the whole chamber and don't fucking point it at someone, which I think's a much better analysis of that. Like we said in our ramblings, the fact that live ammunition was anywhere near that set is the biggest thing. Like, I feel whoever was doing the procurement, they have something to answer for here. Like, how did those bullets end up there? Maybe it was the Gutierrez-Reed thing, maybe it was people bringing them on to shoot beer cans, but there should have been so many checks of that ammunition before it entered that gun. I would say, I'm just trying to think of what we can learn from this. I think the main one, which I've talked about all the way through, is equipment checks. Checking your equipment is so important. You know, many industries use fork trucks, they use mupes, they use safety harnesses. They all need to be checked by you. They need to be subject to the proper examinations by professionals. And hopefully, if they're checked appropriately and you actually do them checks, it might stop a safety critical fault. The other thing I think is a massive issue here is the incompetence, and the fact that, these people who had a previous negative history with similar hazards were allowed to join this production. Somebody at the point of hiring should have vetted them and established that these guys maybe aren't fit for the job. We've had incidents where we've nearly shot Nicolas Cage. Do we want to do the same with Alec Baldwin? Like, there was a decision there that was made to employ this, seemingly incompetent person. She might be very competent. I'm just reading the script. Please don't sue me. Similarly with the David Halls fella, he'd had his own issues in the past. Incompetence is a massive issue on sites and in work areas, and it does lead to these if there's not proper supervision. It seems like they've both got this wrong. So make sure whoever is in your workplace is competent to be doing the job that they're doing, and where there are issues around that, retraining, raising it with supervision, increasing supervision, will make a safer working environment. Investigating near misses, massively beneficial to the safety of any business. There were 2 or 3 incidents at the start of that script in early filming where incidents involving firearms happened. In your workplace, if an incident happens, make sure that you investigate it properly. Get to the root cause, because by doing that and addressing those root causes, you might find that you can put corrective actions in place to stop anything happening again with more severe consequences. Super, super important. Near misses are the warning shots for your business. Make sure you investigate them. Same with minor accidents. Yeah, okay, today someone's cut their finger on something. The next day they might lose a finger if you don't correct that issue. So making sure that you're investigating near misses, minor accidents, is important, if not more important than investigating the major ones. Finally, and it's a budget thing, and I know we had a rant in the middle, but the budget, this was a tight budget. It was an indie film, and that's absolutely fine. But if you've got a tight budget in your business, don't skimp on the safety side of it. The fines that in the UK that come out of safety breaches can be astronomical. You know, they're generally not designed to shut a business down, but they are designed to hurt. You need to... Safety can cost you a lot more if you have an accident than the cost of managing safely through it. You know, we could be, you know, if this happened in the UK, we'd be in the millions of pounds. You know, it way exceed the safety budget. So making sure that you provide adequate provision for health and safety with anything like this, regardless of budget, is essential. Don't cut it. Anyway, that was probably irrelevant to most people because we're hopefully not, you know, toting guns around your UK workplace. But I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something, and I'll see you for the next one. Let us know if you like this series, by the way. You know, comments or whether good or bad. Yeah, we just want to know if we should carry on with this or not. Anything is absolutely appreciated. See you next time.